Well, welcome to those of you who are joining us on Facebook. Here we are, the 8th night of Sukkot. It is the final night of Sukkot already. We've already been through a week of celebrating Sukkot, and it's been a good week. Even weather-wise, it's been a good week. We've been able to meet all except for one day after out here. In some years, we've had most of Sukkot inside, but it has been a good week, and it's in more ways than one. Yes, indeed. It's good to have the time together as a family. Good to gather in one place, and to have the extended time. Rather than just being here 1 or 2 days a week. It's seeing each other every day and connecting and remembering what it's all about. What we're doing is all about. Especially the importance of the feast, and we're hearing it all over the place. We're hearing it from all over the place, how significant the feasts are, from places that never even really were talking about the feasts before. And so we're on a journey, and it's a good journey, and the journey goes higher and higher from here. I was listening to somebody on BVOV today, and I've never heard this gentleman speaking before, and he started talking about how we're on a journey and we're going higher, and we're not supposed to just stay where we're at, wandering in the desert. We're supposed to go higher. So it's like, yep, that's yeah, Victory Channel. Victory Channel. Victory Channel. Yeah, no, Victory Channel. So it is, we're getting confirmation all over the place, and it is an interesting journey. And so tonight we have another excellent speaker tonight. I believe it will be an excellent time for this person to be able to step out into what Yahweh's calling them to do, and we're expecting a big anointing on it. Amen. And for those of you who are watching on Facebook, it will be audio only tonight, just in case you're wondering where the picture is. So you'll be seeing Happy Sukkot, but here we are. Josiah!
Hello? Hello. I have a really deep voice on this one. Anywho. Alright. I thought my mom was loud. Sheesh. Hello? Hello? There we go. Alright. Anywho. So, as we know, tonight is the last night of Sukkot. So tonight, I'm going to be talking about something a tad bit different than about the feast. I'm going to be talking about something commitment, because in the time that we live in, it's really serious to know what side you are on. And even in the Bible, it talks about that when it says, we also are quick to think when Jesus said, I'm bringing the sword. What he didn't mean is, no, I'm not here to murder or something like that. He meant to say, when it says divide brother against brother, what he was saying is, I'm here to say who's on my side and who's not, which means the brother who didn't believe and the brother who did believe. So, anywho, where are my notes? Okay. Anyway, commitment. According to the dictionary, commitment means a pledge, a promise, and a responsibility. Responsibility is when you're obligated to something or someone. But commitment is tied into a lot of things such as love, trust, never giving up, pushing boundaries. And for example, May 13th, 1940, Winston Churchill addressed the British House of Commons, saying this, I have nothing to offer but blood, tears, toil, and sweat. You may ask, what is our aim? I can answer in one word. It is victory, the victory at all cost, the victory in spite of all terror, however long and hard the road may be. For without victory, there is no survival. And I like what he said there, because he's saying we are willing to go to the end and push past every enemy that comes. Us as Christians, we're so quick to be like, yeah, we'll fight to the end and whatnot. And then we come across an obstacle that's so hard to get over that we just give up and say, you know what, I'm comfortable where I am. And that's not what God wants us to be. He doesn't want us to just be lazy and chill. In Philippians 13:14, it talks about forgetting the past and instead to reach forward to what is ahead of us. Actually, if you can turn there, Philippians 13:14. I think I got it marked in here. Philippians 3:13-14. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Yes, thank you. 13:14. Come on. 3:13-14. If you're there, say you're there. We're there. Okay. We'll start at verse 13. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider that I have made on my own yet, but one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and reaching towards what lies ahead, and press on towards the goal to win heavenly prize in an upward call to God in Christ Jesus. So what he's saying there is he's saying, forget all the hardships I've gone through in the past, but instead I'm looking forward to the goal that is ahead of me. And if I have it here, let's see. Believe. There's one more verse we're supposed to look at. Okay, maybe not. Oh well. Anywho, it talks about in Corinthians, it says, I think I got it. Yes, Corinthians. I apologize. Corinthians chapter 9, 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24. If y'all turn there, please and thank you. We're there? Okay, good. All right. You do not know that in a race all runners run their very best to win, but only one receives the prize. Run your race in such a way that you may seize the prize, and make it yours. And 25, now every athlete who goes into training and completes the game is disciplined. Now I also want to say commitment ties in with discipline. Because if you don't have discipline, you're just going to do whatever you please whenever you feel like, and that means you're not focused on the mission that's ahead of you. Anyway, completes in the games and disciplined and exercises self-control. Now that is an important thing that us as Christians, we forget. Self-control, meaning that when God says do something, you're not going to argue. You're just going to do it because he's Lord over all. And continuing, self-control. They do it to win a crown that withers, but we do it to receive an imperishable crown that cannot wither. I like what he said there, imperishable crown. Everybody say imperishable. Meaning that it will not fall, it will not wither away, unlike a natural one would. And I have it, this is all out the Amplified, so it's got those little things on the bottom, those little things, footnotes, that's what they're called. Perishable crown was usually a woven wreath of pine worn as a crown. Now, those things, those will wither. Those who like plants know that some plants are wither because, well, they wither. I can't really answer that one. Not a plant. That too. And they're not. True that. You guys want to come preach this? I don't know anything about plants right now. Really? Sheesh. There we go. Yes, 24 through 26. Verse 26. Therefore, I do not run without definite goal. I do not flail around like one beating the air like shadow boxing. Yeah, we're not really trying to beat the air. 24 talks about, oh my goodness gracious. 24 talks about doing your best as a prize, and 25 talks about we should not be looking at the natural things that are ahead of us, but instead the spiritual things that are ahead. And then 26 says, basically, if you're going to run with no goal, save yourself and don't run at all. And running without no goal means you're not committed. It means you really don't care. And it's like the parable Yeshua gave about the seed and the sower. If we can turn there. If anybody gets there before me, please tell me what verse, chapter it is. Thank you. Anyway. I am, to be honest, not for sure. Parable of two sons. Seed and the sower. Yes. Landowner. Matthew. It is in Matthew. I can assure you of that one. 13? Okay. Yes, let's start at verse 19, sorry. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom regarding salvation and does not understand and grasp it, the evil one comes and snatches it away, sown in its own heart. And I like what he says there, because verse 19 is showing that it's saying those who, they say, yeah, the word of God, great, but they're not committed, they're not focused on the mission, that they just grab it, but once they grab it, they didn't hold on to it, and the devil's like, I'll take it. Verse 20, the one on whom seed was sown on rocky ground is the one who hears the word and once welcomes it with joy. And that goes into the section of remembering your first love, because it's at first you were committed and at first you had spirit about it, but then as time wear on, you're like, I'm not seeing results, no miracles, no nothing. And the minute you start saying no to God, you're opening a bigger crack in the wall for the devil to get in. Verse 21, yet he who has no root in himself, but is only temporary, and when pressure or prosecution comes because of the word, immediately he stumbles and falls away, abandoning the one who is the source of salvation. Verse 22, the one on whom seed was sown among thorns. Okay, hold on a second. Verse 23, actually. And the one on whom seed was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word, understands it, and grasps it. Which means the one who grasps it says, no matter what happens, I will stay till the end. And that's what we should be doing. We should be staying till the end. To the end of time, to the end of however long we are needed on this earth. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Committed, not committed. Running without a goal means you're not committed. For example, for those who like to work out and keep their body in shape, such as bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is actually not the same as working out. Working out is just keeping your body physical, jogging. Bodybuilding is actually a very, very strong commitment because bodybuilding, you're on a lot of nutritious stuff. Sadly, now a lot of bodybuilders are passing away because of certain drugs that they're taking to get them better, which is really sad because some of these guys are like 20 and 30. Anywho, exactly, yeah, natural. Actually, that kind of ties into the Word of God because we're so quick to rush things, just like Abraham with Hagar. Thank you. Hagar, he rushed God. God said, I will give you a child, and he will be the father of many nations. And Abraham's like, okay, I'm like 100, I got a beard and everything, and nothing's happening. I don't have a child. And so he's like, you know what? Let me help God out a little bit. And if God created the earth and made you into existence, what makes you think that he needs your help to fulfill his promises? And so Abraham made a sad mistake. That doesn't mean he was out of God's love. No, he was still in God's love, but he was out of line, out of position, exactly, with that. And we can learn from examples, simple examples in the Bible from that. Anyway, bodybuilding, you have to push yourself, which means if it means working out for 3 hours a day, you got to do what it takes, because not only are you getting physical results such as defined muscle and stuff like that, you're also getting a lot of inward results such as blood flowing different ways and all of that. So I want to ask you, how committed are you? Let's see. Let's turn to Matthew 10:28. Matthew 10:28. 28. And then we'll skip down to verse 38. But first... Okay. So this is not exactly with commitment, but it does tie in to the time that we are in. Anywho, verse 28, so you're there? We're there. All right, good. It says, "Do not be afraid of those who can kill the body, but cannot kill the soul, but rather be afraid of him who can destroy both soul and body in hell." The hell part, that's talking a little more about salvation, but not being afraid of those who can kill the body. Us as Christians, we're like, yeah, we'll be committed, but then we don't commit ourselves to think that there might be a person who we come across who wants to get rid of us because of what we believe in. And when we find out that there are people who want to kill us for what we believe in, we quit. We're like, I'll just fit in with the crowd. And fitting in with the crowd does not lead you to opportunities. So, verse 38. "And he who does not take up his cross," which is expressing a willingness to endure whatever may come. And whatever may come does not mean that the minute you accept God, circumstances are automatically going to flood on you. They might, but basically what he's saying is, who's willing to endure to the end? Whatever may come, and follow me, believing in me, confirming to my example of living, and if need be, suffering, or perhaps dying, because of faith in me, is not worthy of me. Now, not worthy of me is not a place you want to be in. You do not ever want to be called not worthy, which brings us to that part where he says, "I will separate the goats from the sheep." What he's saying there is he's not saying... Actually, he is saying, what he's saying is, I'm going to separate those who believe in me and those who said, yeah, we'll believe in you, and then quit. Which brings us to when he says, "Get away from me, I never knew you." Those aren't false prophets. Those are religious people who had no internal belief in him. They said, yeah, we'll follow, but then times got hard and they're like, nope, I'll just say I'm a Christian, but then act in an entirely different way. So that's verse 38. Oh boy. It also says, okay, that's too far. Verse 38. I think I put it there. Anywho, so it says to endure to the end. I want to ask, how far are we willing to endure? How far are we willing to go before we say, I throw the towel in, I'm done? To say I'm done is not a place you want to be. Because when you say I'm done, you're saying I'm giving up on the blessings God could give me. I'm giving up on the stuff that may open up in the next 2 years. Because we all think that the minute we say I want a miracle, we think it's going to happen instantly. I'm not saying it can't happen instantly. I've seen miracles happen in split seconds, but that's because of time dimension. It's because we have the authority over every circumstance. We can take what could take 17 years to recover and take all that 17 years and combine it into 17 seconds, and the miracle will be done. But some miracles are ones that take time, and half of the miracles are based on how much faith you have. How much faith you have is a very important part, because if you have mustard seed and you can say to a mountain, be gone, what do you think you have when you have apple seed faith? What else can you move? If we have the power over everything God has given us, why don't we act in it? And that's a question you guys should all answer personally. I think I put it in here. 15. Bless you. No problem. Anywho. Okay, we'll go back there. Anywho, I want to talk about another thing that comes with commitment, and that's prosperity. Because when I first wrote these notes, I'm like, I'm going to talk on one thing with commitment. But as I'm reading the Bible, it's pointing me here and there and there. And I'm like, obviously, I can't stay on one path right now. So I was like, you know what, Holy Spirit, take my hand. And I'm like, whatever's on my paper's on my paper. So let's turn to Proverbs 16:3. I wish I was better at sword drills. Ay, ay, ay. 16:3. Okay. If you're there, say there. All right. The Bible says, commit your works to the Lord. Submit and trust in them. And your plans will succeed if you have response to his will and guidance. Okay. Commit your actions to the Lord and your plans will succeed. We also got to look, commitment comes with blessings. And us as Christians, we're so quick to be like, no, we're just the dirt of the earth, we're nothing. All we got to do is spread the gospel and be poor people. And I see a lot of Christians like that. But then I know this one person who, he goes all over the world. And he goes to certain countries and he don't have to buy a car. People walk up to him and say, here, use my property. He knows people who have like 17-bedroom houses. And us as Christians, you look, it's like, how can people overseas prosper and only hear one verse in the Bible and they prosper better than we do, and we've heard the whole Bible our entire lives? And that's what makes me very uncomfortable, and it almost makes me a righteous zealousness, because it's like, while people over here are talking to me and I'm like, what's wrong if I have bigger dreams? I'm sorry that I'm thinking how God wants me to think. People over here tell me, oh, you're young, just wait till you're older. No. How come David was a king? Josiah was a king at 8 years old. Okay, a king at 8 years old. Some of us are not you guys over here, but some of us are 38 and we're still driving 1990 cars. Nothing wrong with 1990 cars, by the way. Those are very nice. But we should, and then we say, yeah, God wants us to be prosperous, and then yet we go find somebody to complain about our bill. I'm not saying bills are bad. Even the rich people have bills. Everybody's got bills. It's just how your mentality is to handle those bills. Are you willing to say, okay, something I'm supposed to deal with, it's a part of life? Or are you going to look at it and be like, oh my gosh, a bill. Like, really? Oh my goodness. Like, I used to hear people, it's like, ugh, I gotta pay the rent this month. It's like, yeah, you do. Like, if you want your electricity on, yes, you do. And then I hear my mom, and she's like, oh, yep, blah, 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 bill. It's like, okay, good for you. And I hear a lot of other people, it's like, we are so busy. But also, Christians also think, when they start thinking blessings, they think $1 million mansions and nice cars and stuff like that. And now, don't hear me wrong. There is nothing wrong with owning a very, very nice car. I'm driving down the highway this morning. Not me, personally. Do not get that wrong, please. Yeah, no, I was driving. I keep saying, my mother was driving down, and I was up front, and all of a sudden, on our side, I saw a McLaren. And automatically, my mind's like, Josiah, claim it. And I'm like, I claim that. That is mine. And I look at it, and it's like, I've had people talk to me, and they're like, I told them what I wanted, and I was like, this is what I'd like. And they looked at me like I had 18 heads. They're like, but then I also had one person tell me, he was 20 years old, I believe. He said, you're 15 and have your whole life planned out for you. I'm 20 years old, and I don't know what my next move is going to be. I was like, that's kind of sad, but okay. But anyway, we look at him. Some blessings come in the smallest things, such as a person paying your groceries. Even if they're not a lot, say some detergent, some apples. That's still a blessing. It's God's favor working in us. Now, I've heard some stories about people doing that. It's like, good for you. But then there are some Christians who automatically, they hear this blessing, and all of a sudden, oh, why did God do that for you? It's like, chill. I'm just trying to tell you a blessing that happened to me. I thought you'd be happy. And those are the people you have to be aware of, because like we find ourselves so quickly to get tripped up when somebody else gets blessed. And that's what we look at. We also got to look at ourselves when we're doing that. It's like, okay, yeah, you got your car before I did. Exactly. Lines moving, but also look inside yourself. What did they do to get that car first that you didn't? Maybe you missed it somewhere. And we got to look at that, because like, Oh, this person got this. Oh, this person got this. I've been believing for 10 years for this. What did they do? Maybe they said something. Maybe they sowed a seed that was a big seed that needed to be sowed. And we're like, no, 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 no. Oh, God must be mad at me or something. No, 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 no. God is not. Exactly. How much faith do you have? How willing are you to believe? But then sometimes we rush God, like I was saying. Like that story of Keith Moore. He's like, I need a car by this time at this specific date. Let's use seconds. He's like, in 32 seconds, I need this according to this time. And it's like, no, no, no. Let God do his work. Because while you are sitting there asking for that car, I'm not saying it's a bad car, you're asking for that, let's go with car. And you're sitting there, it might be a nice car, but what happened if you waited? What if a nicer car came on that lot that you could have afforded for the same price as that car? You have the budget and everything. But no, you rushed God, so you bought that car that in the next 2 years, the engine and everything is blown because you didn't wait. You were so eager to get that car to say, everybody look at me, look what I got, that you missed the greatest blessing. And that's what I'm slowly learning, because it was like, my mom asked me a really good question because I told her I'd like to have a nice car. And she's like, what are you getting the nice car for? To show other people God can do this, or to say, look what I've done? And that's where we got to be careful, because that is a very, very, very fine line. It's, look what I did. And at first, a lot of people, it's like, look what God did. But then in a couple months, a stranger comes by, and you're like, yeah, I did this. Or this is how much money I make to do this. Really, to be honest, it's none of their business how much money you make. You should be saying, hey, if God did this for me, all you need is he can do it for you. But we're so quick to be like, oh, it's my car. Technically, it's not your car. Because if you haven't paid the loan for it, it still belongs to the company, technically. Just saying. Anywho, I put it in here somewhere. Did we look at Matthew 19? No, I don't think we did. Okay. Just checking. Anywho, yeah, Matthew 19. Let's start at verse 16, and then we'll skip down to 21. Someone came up to him and said, Teacher, what essentially good things shall I do to obtain eternal life? And that eternal salvation is Messiah's kingdom. This is the story of the rich young ruler. Hence, emphasis on rich young ruler. Rich young ruler. You do saying nothing against Colonel Sanders or whatnot being, 80 and selling Kentucky Fried Chicken. Okay, it's finger looking good. Nothing wrong with that, because it's never too late. To be honest, it is never too late. Until the last breath you have, you can make a change. But I really like what it said, and that really points out to me, rich young ruler, which means he, not only was he successful, but he had properties and he had people under his command. Anywho, skip to verse 21. Yeshua answered him, if you wish to be perfect, that is, to have spiritual maturity that accompanies godly character with no moral or ethical, thank you, deficiency, go and sell what you have and give money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me. Emphasis on treasure in heaven. We don't realize that. There's nothing wrong with making money on earth. But it's like you said, whatever you loose on earth is loose in heaven, and whatever you bind in heaven is bound on earth is bound in heaven. So which means if he were to loose his money on earth, which means if he would have accepted Yeshua's offer, he could have had treasures, a lot of treasures up in heaven. Continuing, becoming my disciple. Also, a disciple is commitment too. If you look, Peter, Yeshua literally was walking. It's not like they had known each other before. Yeshua says, I'm who I am. I gave you the evidence. Come follow me. We also got to think Peter was natural. So we all think he just automatically was like, yeah, I'll go. There must have been for a split second a thought of doubt. That he's like, what happens if I do this? Will I lose my fishing career? For me, I think on the funny side, for me, it's like if you watch The Chosen, it shows that he's fishing at night. For me, it's like he's like, what more do I have to lose? I'm not catching anything really anyway. He's like, I might as well follow this guy, and he followed him. He's like, you know what? I will. And he shows his commitment, but his commitment was for a fleshly reason when he says, I will die for you. We will all get crucified for you. That was more of a flesh moment because he was like, look what I'll do for you, Lord. And really, he should have been like, Lord, we are with you to the end. He's like, I will be willing to follow you. And Yeshua even was like, this is going to happen. And see, the thing is, we're so quick to stop things that have already been set in motion. If Peter had read the law, all young boys had read the law. It was in their thing. Even Isaiah talks about he will go to Jerusalem and he will be mocked and judged and all of that. Peter already knew that, but Peter loved and was committed to Jesus so much that he was trying to stop it. So his actions were good. The way he did it, not so much. And it's funny because Peter was a leader. John may be the favorite, but John was not a leader. Because the minute Peter said, we will all die for you, all this stuff was like, yeah, we got your back. I don't know what Thomas was thinking. What? We got your back? We're going to get crucified. Peter's like, no. But John was his favorite. But like I said, John was not the leader. Which means Peter had authority, which means the disciples looked up to him, which means if Peter was in need and help, and I think Peter proved himself as a leader when Jesus asked, who do you say I am? Remember, that wasn't Peter. Literally, that was not Peter. If you hear Peter talking when Jesus tells him about being killed, no. Yeah. But that was Holy Spirit speaking right through Peter. And I think we don't realize that. We're like, yeah, Peter given up from his heart. No. Up from above into his heart. And out of the heart, the mouth speaks. So it went from here all the way to here and through the mouth. And Peter showed, I'm pretty sure some of the disciples were like, wow, that's deep. And after Peter comes back to his conscience, he's like, what did I say to Jesus? They're like, you did good, man. You did good. He's like, yeah. But he showed himself a leader because he said, people may deny you, but I won't. Like I said, his actions were right. The way he did it, not so much. Continuing with verse 2. But when the young man heard this, he was left grieving and distressed. I think people, or little videos that show like the rich young ruler, they say he kind of like walked with his head hung. No, it says grieving. Grieving is a word as in sadness, deep sadness. Not like, oh, yeah, exactly. Not like wiping a tear and, oh, well, he didn't answer my question. No, grieving as in, exactly, someone passed away, yeah. And distressed. Distraught is a strong word, too. Because distraught is not, like, irritated. Distraught is, like, all your emotions and all your thoughts just exactly combining it into one huge emotional roller coaster. But anyway, continuing. For he owned much property and had many possessions. But here, it's not on the footnote, but it kind of like hyphens it, I guess. I think that's the right word. Which he treasured more than his relationship with God. That is sad. But like I said, who are you got the car for? To say, look what I've done? Which brings me to another question. What do we treasure more than life? Because I'm not saying there's anything wrong with treasuring anything more than life. Because there's some things I treasure, but not as in a treasure as I would die for them. Treasure as in these are gifts given to me from when I was maybe a little child or something that are really close to me. But ultimately, you don't want to have anything closer to you than the relationship and the flowingness of the Holy Spirit. That is sad. We'll continue into verse 23 and we'll go to 24 and I'll stop and talk there for a little bit. Jesus said to his disciples, I assure you and most solemnly say to you, it is difficult, thank you, for a rich man who clings. Everybody say cling. Cling. Clings to his possessions, which means he's not willing to let them go. If he's a rich young ruler, which means he's got money and properties, if he's not willing to let one thing go, you can tell money's got a hold of him. For some true, honest billionaires, you talk to them, and I saw it in a YouTube video one time. It was this guy, and he made a lot of money, and he's driving a Rolls Royce, and I'll say a 19-year-old walks up to him and says, wow, that's a nice car. And you know what he says? He goes, this thing really? See, to some billionaires, you mess up one car, they're going to be like, oh, well, look in my backyard. You know how many more cars I got? Like, they're not cling, because I think once you start making more than $1 million, well, nothing wrong with making more than $1 million, but when you start making a lot of money, if the money doesn't have a hold of you, you realize a really important life lesson. That money is just a tool. Money is a tool. Now, money is a tool to buy and use things. But for some billionaires, money is a tool to reach the world, to go to Africa and help needy children, to go to Jamaica and solve some of the problems there. See, we look at money and we're like, oh, if you make $1 billion, you know, oh, well, because we're so upset because we're not making $1 billion that we get mad at the person who did something that we didn't do, who was committed, which means also commitment means sacrifice. I didn't write this in my notes, but commitment means sacrifice, which means what are you willing to give up for the sake of Yeshua? But in money terms, what are you willing to give up for the goal ahead of you? Which may mean, while everybody left and is heading to the bar because it's Friday night and we don't got to work till Monday and hanging out with their friends and probably getting into trouble later on, you stayed and worked another 2-hour shift and closed down the store, which means you're not getting back home till, let's average, 9 o'clock at night. And if you got a family, which means helping your wife put the kids to sleep, you know, cleaning up the house, making sure everything's all good and gravy, making sure everything's nice and clean. For those who don't like to go to bed with a dirty house, just saying, that's my mother. If there is one dish in the sink at 12:01 in the morning, she will stay up and scrub that dish till 12:15 and then go to bed. Which, hey, that's commitment. You know, God gave us houses for a reason. He didn't give us houses to just dump and put wherever. I think that's what people don't realize, you know. A house is also a tool. You don't keep it clean, such as for those who do like maintenance with housing and stuff like that. Water damage. You see a drop of water on, you know, your roof. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but oh well. But if you let that water damage get any bigger, soon enough it spreads to the whole roof. And when you don't, I kind of made that kind of mistake with my ceiling. It was starting to cave in just a little bit. I didn't pay any really attention to it till it was almost touching my head, caving in. I'm like, whoa, did I get taller? Did the room shrink? Like, basically that. And it was like, what happens when you don't fix the promise? Like that story that you were telling on one of the Bible studies about that crack in the wall. Eventually, the army didn't even have to climb the wall. And if you look at history, we did a Bible study on this, how they used to climb up the walls. They would make ramps. They didn't even have to use a ramp. The enemy's like, yeah, they're not coming. Whatevs, let's go hang out. And the enemy's like, do they notice the big crack in the wall or like what? And the enemy, all they had to do is slip through, which is what the devil can, exactly, what the enemy can do if we're not paying attention. And, okay, where was I? Verse 23. Yeshua said to his disciples, I assure you, as most solemnly and most solemnly say to you, it is difficult for a rich man who I already read that. To enter the kingdom of heaven. It is. It's a very good one. Jesus, Yeshua, is not saying it's impossible to get in if you have money. He's saying that the minute you start making money, and it's actually true in the real world, the minute you start making money, everything changes. Certain things are easier to afford. Certain things are easier to get. And soon enough, it's like money becomes like a heart. You can't live without it. And nowadays, you need money to get stuff. Like, that's how. But if it becomes your heartbeat, then you're in trouble. Because that means money is you, and you are not money. I actually rephrased that. Money has you instead of you having money. Because I have a book, and it's for entrepreneurship, but it's how to make work work. Which means people, once they start making hundreds of $1,000s in short times, people don't realize. I just misplaced my trail of thought. Hold on a second. That's what I was going to say. People don't realize that you worked for that money, not that money worked for you. And if you are a smart, successful entrepreneurship, you will know how to make money work for you, which means you know how to put investments here and investments there. You know how to put money here and trust that, thank you, and trust that God will, for us believers, because not every millionaire is a believer, but us as believers, that God will take that money and send it all over and make those good investments. Anyway, going down to verse 24, again I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man who places his faith in wealth. Exactly, see, faith and wealth. Which means he believed that without wealth, he's nothing. And a lot of people make money, well, not a lot of people, but there is some who they make money because their friends make money. I know people who they make, let's say, half as much money. And yet, they are actually the happiest people I like to be around. Because they know where to put money, because sometimes it's a mistake they made. Like, I have some family, it's probably a mistake they made. So they know, and they can give you advice, which I like. And they're just happy because they're not talking about, hey, look what I bought, or hey, this is how much money I make. They're just trying to have a happy time. And just be happy. So you don't want to have your faith in wealth, because wealth is temporary. If you don't do this, but if you threw all your money into a fire, that money is not just gonna magically be invincible. That money will burn, and it'll burn up in a cloud of smoke, which means money is a temporary tool that God has given us to establish and use to help the nations. Because I think we realize us as Christians, we're so quick to be like, oh, well, I don't got to make money. God's just going to do all da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm not saying he can't. Do not, exactly. Because look at Elijah. Elijah did not have money. He's not paying the ravens to drop food. He's not like, hey, here's your $20 for that. God gave him that stuff. But in certain things, for people who go to the ends of the earth, some of these things cost money. Food, safety, survival, gas, which is a big thing right now, and vehicles to get to your destinations. Like, for people who explore jungles, that, to be honest, is not cheap. Because you got to find right people who know when to do the right thing, which I think we take for granted sometimes, like GPS. We think, I shared this with a couple of people, but it's like, we're just like, oh, yeah, it's there when we need it, and that's a good thing. But, to be honest, the government pays $17 million to keep I believe it's 17 million. I'm not for sure. I'll have to recheck. But they pay millions of dollars to keep, I believe, 10 or 13 exactly, thank you. 10 to 12 satellites up in the space to a point where you need to go. So while we can tap our phone with one button and GPS knows our location and says, you will arrive at your destination and da-da-da-da-da, the government, money is flowing out of the government. Which means, but we should also be a fountain where money is flowing out of us to people who need help. But I think that's also discernment, though. You need to discern who actually needs help and who's playing you for help. It's like that story. Exactly. You got those people, who walk up to you, hey, I need help. And you're like, okay, here's some clothes. You drive back 5 minutes later, those clothes have been on a bus, a train, and every transportation you can imagine. Exactly. And it's really sad because these are innocent people who have such good hearts to give, and they get played. Us as Christians, you don't want to get played because the devil will send people who know how to play. It's witchcraft, basically it is. They know if you can go, exactly. And actually, the Bible actually says it. We say kill, steal, and destroy. No, it says steal, kill, and destroy. Which means first he steals the word, then he gets rid of every joy that you had, and then he just destroys every belief you have in everything that God has given you. Which means you just become, the word is mindless. You're just whatever. You don't care. Exactly, a puppet, thank you. You don't care. You're being played. And you don't want to be played. I saw something, and it was a person, an older-looking lady, and a person gave her money because he felt bad. An older lady on the streets of New York. That's not a nice place to be, especially on the streets of New York. God bless New York. The whole world needs it. But he gave her money. The camera, because it was a camera team, they found out she was driving a Porsche. You're driving a Porsche, and you dress in rags, and people pay you. And in New York, you got 5 cars driving by every 2 seconds. So which means if you sit out there for a day shift, so let's say you work 8 to 5. Let's use 5. All right, 8 to 5. That is... Anybody know how many hours that is? 9. It's 9 hours. Okay. So you do 9 hours, and 5 cars are going by 5 seconds, and they're each paying you $100. I'm doing easy math here, people. Yeah. Eventually, that adds up, and that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. I wish I was making $900 a day. But who says we can't, though? Who says we can't? If God made us to be prosperous, and he made us to be successful in every area, who says we can't make $900? We should be able to pick up the phone, solve one problem, and all of a sudden, money just comes in. My mom has a friend. He got paid $400 for 4 minutes. That's good. Because all he had, and he didn't even work. He just stood there and said, yeah, do this. And all of a sudden, they're like, here's your $400. He's like, thank you. Who says we can't? Who says somebody comes up to us and says, this is, but with helping comes a little bit of confrontation. Did I say that right? Which means that you might have to tell them, hey, you're doing something wrong here. And when doing that, why shouldn't we be able to be like, all right, I helped you with your problem, and all of a sudden, a check for $200 comes in your mail. Who says we can't? Anywho. But about the rich young ruler, you see, he was so committed to fame and fortune that he became a clock puncher. If, for those who don't know what it means that it's just all about making money. Your family, all your friends, they were somebody who existed, that all you care about is making money, and which is a sad place to be because when you're all about thinking that without money you won't survive, the people who are around you get hurt the most. Not you. You may enjoy your job. And there are people who don't enjoy their job, which is sad. But enjoy a job not because you're making money, but because there are people in your job area who don't know Yeshua or who need help, but they're just too afraid to say, hey, I need help, because the world will laugh at them. And the world that we live in now, the world picks on weak people, people who can't help themselves. But anyway, a little side trail there. Let's turn to Isaiah 55, verse 2. Isaiah's that way. Guess they want to hear my sermon too. Hey, why not, right? All right, 55, verse 2. Why do you spend money for that which is not bread? You see what it says there? So it's like, why are you spending money on something that basically can't last? That's something that's not permanent. Listen to me. Oh, wait. In your earnings for what does not satisfy, which means you could make all the money in the world, and yet, exactly, you can make all the money in the world, and yet still not be happy, which is sad, sort of. Because when you're not happy, there's no joy, there's no essence in everything. Listen carefully to me and eat what is good. But this is where I just want to say, let your soul delight in abundance. Which means, what's wrong with being successful? Let your soul delight in these things. Just make sure that abundance doesn't become you as a whole. Okay, yeah. That whole, you are supposed to be whole. God gave us tools so that we could be whole. He gave us, our bones and organs and muscles and nerves so that we could be a whole as one and not die. But he also gave us tools such as being able to live in a building with a roof on your head, having food, family, and actually, speaking of, even science has proven that you need people around you, or, you just become a depressed person, and it's not good to be depressed. God gave us those things, and actually, science doesn't even prove it. If you look at Adam, God saw that he was lonely. I mean, he was talking to animals, guys. He named these animals. If you see any, cartoons where the human is talking to animals, the other people are you okay? But it's like, he named these animals. God had given him a job. But then God's like, you have done your job. Let me bless you with something else. Which means, how they say, I'm the happiest man alive? Everybody knows that saying, really. That, for Adam, that really was true. Because a tiger is not the same as a human. But to have another human there, it's a lot easier. Couple. Let's talk about relationships for a second. A couple, when you are a single parent, I'm not saying it's impossible, because it is very, very, very possible, actually. It's just there are some things that could, it's interesting to work with. Yeah, stop saying yeah. Exactly, yeah. Or when the partner's not around to do anything, and which means, the partner gets home at 5 and you get home at 7, but yet nothing's been done. That's a divided house, ultimately. But it's harder to work because, if you have, especially when you're, even if you're a whole couple, which means you love each other and you serve each other, ultimately, and I say serve not as in here is your coffee master. I say serve as in help each other out without thinking I'm going to be late. Or, I say serve as in, he's tired. He may not be feeling up to speed today. Let me help him. Or let me help her. She's been going through a lot. And it's a lot, especially when, the wife is pregnant. There's a lot of things, a man's got to set aside and help his wife, because being pregnant is not easy. Don't ask me. Do not ask me how I know that. Yeah. uh, but you gotta serve, and oh boy, where was I? Okay, we'll skip that. It'll come back to me. Hold on a second. I want to talk about another commitment. Another commitment is love. That is the greatest commitment of all. Now, yes, Yeshua laid his life down for us, and that ultimately, but I think commitment ties with sacrifice, but they're not exactly the same thing. Yeshua made the ultimate sacrifice for mankind, which was made out of love. But let's see what John 15:13 has to say about love. If you're there, everybody there? Or those who need to be there? Anyway, 13, it says, no greater love, mine says no greater love, no nor stronger commitment than to lay down his life for his own friend. Now that is tough, because for me, I have levels. You have acquaintances, you have very good acquaintances, you have friends, you have best friends, but for me, I don't really add best friends. For my best friends are like my family. Those count as family. But it says to lay down your life for a friend. You know the verse, who is my neighbor? You know that stuff. We're not really talking about neighbor. We're talking about friend, which means, but also a friend can be somebody you don't even know yet. Jesus did not, God knew who we were. God knew who Josiah was. Yeshua in that moment did not. But he died for a complete stranger. For me, knowing that I would mess up in life, knowing that I will make mistakes like every human that has been born onto this planet. I'll make mistakes, I will mess up, but those mess ups are just, exactly, they're little trails that go out of the trail, but then once you realize you're off the trail, they have an exit route which gets you back on the trail. They're stepping stones, because when you look at it, like, we were talking in the office on Saturday, talking just about Sukkot, and I said a word that I wasn't really for sure what it meant. But now that I look at that word, I can think, well, I won't say that in front of people anymore, because, well, that's really none of their business. But you also make mistakes every day. Every day you make a mistake without even knowing it. And they may not be big mistakes, and a mistake is not always sin. Now, I want everybody really to get that out their head. A mistake is not sin. A mistake is just something you didn't know, and then once you find out, now you know. Just like when a kid says a word they're not supposed to. They didn't know. Like when you're 3 years old and you say a word you heard somewhere else that your parents, they didn't know you heard that word, and you say it to them. Now, there are some religious, strict parents out there, the minute you say that word, the stick, the belt with spikes and sticks, all comes out. And you're looking at them like, what did I say? I'm sorry. And then you have those parents who are compassionate. Now, correction ties in with passionate. Because though you're passionate with them and it's like, hey, we don't say that word, you do got to tell them, this is why. And correction does not have to be at that time and moment. Let's just go with that. But it's just saying, if you say that word again, there will be a consequence. Because once you know, you know. So it's not like you can be like, oh, I didn't know that. Sadly, with all these genders and, all that stuff, it's like, you do know. It's like, you cannot not know. You know how many, it's like, you cannot know that you're, whatever you want to be that day. I can't really even specify. But it's like, once you know, you know. And it's like certain words when I was growing up, and there was a lot of words said from my family that my parents were smart, so they said, you know what? Family's going to talk like that. We're not their judge, but we're going to keep our kids away from that. Exactly. And sometimes I said those words. At first, I think my mom was that person with the stick, the belt, and all that, coming out there looking, and I'm like terrified out of my pants because this person just is walking up to me, and I'm like, what did I say? But then, you got to realize it's like they just don't know, and I think that's where people know because children are innocent. Children when you are first born, you do not know right from wrong. Everything is not mono, but kind of everything's same. It's this word, that word. But the minute you are born, you hear everything. Actually, science has proven in the womb you hear everything, which is if your parents aren't committed to really being parents, sadly that's now, you get married and, you have a child, and then once that child gets born, you're like, I don't want anything to do with that. Or actually, you make the mistake of not being ready. So you always got to be prepared, never jump into anything like that. But being committed, so that child is hearing every word. So the minute it can say its first word, you want to be making sure that you're saying the right words around that child, because sound penetrates through our bodies even as full-grown adults and fully developed. Sound still penetrates through our body. Everybody's heard the term words as weapons, right? Everybody's heard that? There are literally words that are weapons. If you tell a parent who is trying their best in every area to provide, and you tell them they're being a bad parent, that is a weapon. Because, I'm trying, my kids are smiling and everything, and then all of a sudden, the devil gets into your mind, and we all know how he is. Unfortunately, we all know how he is. He's like, maybe they're faking it. Maybe they're just saying that, they do hang out with that other family. Maybe they're doing better than you are. And then you start getting into doubt, and then you start forgetting. And I think that's where a lot of parents, then you end up with spoiled kids because you're like, well, I don't want them to not like me. And being committed has nothing to do with liking. When you are a follower of Yeshua, and especially, exactly, and for all of us here, we have elders who help us with our community service. Those people, I have heard, more people have rejected them than actually listened to them. Which I'm like, at first I was like, oh, I'm sorry, guys. But then I'm like, you guys didn't sign up for people to like you. And they were actually telling me, literally, and what actually they believe in. A lot of people are like, you're crazy. And they actually, now with them doorbells that you can see through, you looking, two people in a suit and tie, like, hi, we want to talk about Jesus. And they're like, I'm not going to even answer the door. And then some people are just plain, the minute you say Jesus, they're like, nope, and just shut the door. But we don't want to shut our doors. That's where we don't want to be. We don't want to shut our doors. But, what was I saying? I was saying commitment. Commitment does not mean when you are committed to being a good parent and raising your kids to be successful, your kids aren't going to like you, I will assure you. When you're 7, it's like, yeah, mom's just correcting me. When you're my age, and every time you seem like you're having fun, and that fun gets ruined, all you're going to do is mad. So you play the silent treatment with your parent. And that's just weird because your mom tells a joke and you don't even laugh. Even when I tell a joke and nobody laughs, but well, okay. But it's like you're not there to be your friend because especially when you start hitting the age of 13, 14, actually nowadays, sadly, 3 and 4. Especially if you're Christian parents. But let's go back 10 years, all right? When you're 15, 16, especially when you start getting privileges such as car, money, job, and friends. Those are actually, car is all right. Money, a job, but ultimately friends. When you are 18 and you have certain friends who all they care about. Now, that's why us as parents here, we are very watchful who our kids hang around with. I have some people I know that my mom just gives them that eyeball that's like, I don't like them. I'm like, oh yeah, I can't tell. Sheesh. But it's like the whole thought of it's like, but I like them. But here's the thing. God as the root of the tree, parents as the branch, and children as the fruit. As in, we produce what God tells our parents, and our parents tell us. We produce what we go out, and then we produce more fruit, and fruit goes on and on and on. An apple tree produces another apple. Sadly, now it's producing oranges and bananas and lemons. I don't know how we got to that world, but yeah. But every time we just gotta look, and it's like, there was a time, and it's like, the saying, mothers know best. No offense, fathers, you guys have wisdom too. But the mothers do know best. They have I say we as in I'm speaking for all you females. No. We have a sense of, especially us as singles and stuff like that, we don't want our kids to make the same mistakes we did. Because once you start making the same mistakes we did, you get into that. And that's why doctors ask the question, does anybody in your family have cancer or stuff? We shouldn't be at that area where it's like, ultimately we know here, cancer is caused by certain foods you eat in certain environmental areas you are around. But it's mainly food. But if somebody told me a story, I won't name the person, but they had a family member who smoked like terrible. Like, at the minute they told me how much they smoke, I'm like, ugh, that's disgusting. But then they looked at that person, they said, if I ever catch you smoking, I'm going to put this in my family terms, I will come back from heaven or wherever I am, and I will give you the spanking of your life. And that person was like, yes, ma'am, I will not do that. And today they have not done that, and that's a good thing because this person is still active and very successful in life. But anyway, like I said, committed does not mean people are going to like you. Even when you love everybody, still don't mean they're going to like you. And actually, love is a weapon of greatness that God has given us, and I say weapon as penetrates the devil's plans, but love is also a target. Because when you just love people unconditionally, and you care about people, and you serve people, and then there will be people who come along, and they play you. Oh, I live here. They may live here, and they may be honest, but they know how to use words. So it's like this, and then all of a sudden, you're taking your delivery that was for somebody else who needed it, and you're taking what actually belongs to them, and you're giving it to somebody else who you barely know. You met them, and they said, oh, I am not that rich. And all of a sudden, you're taking all you do is spend your time providing for that person, and now there's a bunch of other people in line who they're getting nothing. And we really don't want to be in a place like that. We need to have love as our armor, but then we need a shield to protect us too. And that is commitment. Commitment is I'm willing to help people, but the minute you get out of line, I can't really help you anymore. You know the saying, a person who doesn't want to be helped can't be helped? It's true. It literally is true. I know people like that. And actually, I'm friends with some people, and it's like, you really shouldn't be eating that stuff. Yeah, or, the whole thing smokers tell you if they're, like, older and they're like, oh, I know, I'm trying to get off. All it takes is that minute you get that money, don't go buy a cigarette pack. That's all it takes. Literally, it is not that hard. It's like waking out of bed in the morning. Well, for some people, sort of. You have two different types. You have a bunch of different types, but you have mainly two. The ones who are like, yeah, I'll get out of bed. That was me this morning. I was like, all right, I'll get 15 more minutes of sleep. I wake up. It's been 45 minutes. I'm like, oh no, I gotta get going. So you have those people like, yeah, I'll stop. And then you have those people who they're actually committed to stopping. And there have been people. Now, sometimes there are people who process it their own way. So I know a person volunteers here, and she used to smoke like 2 packs a day, which is, no offense, that's disgusting. Okay, we're all on the same page here. That's really gross. That's really nasty. But now they've come to smoking only a half a cigarette a day. So that is a very big improvement. So let's say a pack has, all right, we'll go with 8. So that's 16. A lot. Yeah, especially some now, the big packs that you can just buy. Ugh, sorry, it just makes me disgusted. Really, it's really not healthy for you. Because once you hit 30, your ribs are basically black. So, lungs, thank you. Ugh, your ribs aren't doing any better really either, so, oh well. Yeah. Like a husband making a comment, then having to go home with his wife. That just really doesn't go good. Sorry, buddy, but I'm sorry. I wasn't even going to tell jokes today. I was just going to be, like, really serious and just go through my pages. Like, some of these things I just have to say, yeah. But, you know, it's like in smoking a half a cigarette a day, so let's say 20, right? 20 in one pack. That is 40 cigarettes you're smoking during daylight, and let's say you're up for 17 hours. That's 40 cigarettes in 1 hour. Not 1 hour. That's 40 cigarettes in 17 hours. That would be very disgusting. I don't even know if it's possible. Ugh, that's gross. Yeah. But that's sad. And, you know, so 40 in 17 hours, which means you're taking like 3 every hour, but to smoke in a half one a day, now smoking overall, that's a very, very big improvement. Anyway, exactly. I keep going on side trails. I feel like Saba. He's got the line. He's like, heart ties. This is what I'm going to preach about. And all of a sudden he's talking about how Hitler was this and that. I was like, stay on trail. He's like, I'm sorry. But let me ask you a question. How willing are you and how committed are you to your friend? With that, who is your friend? Because nowadays, like I said, when you're young, and I say young as like young adult, so you're getting opened up to the world, every nice person you know seems to be your friend. You know, every person who does one nice act for you gives you 2 pieces of good nuggets of advice, and you're like, yeah, they're my bro. Trust me. You wait 6 months, I bet you 6 months, that's what I give it. And, you know, that friend doesn't want anything to do with you or anything, or plays mind games with you. And that is sad. But like I said, who is your friend? So ask yourself that question. Just look inside yourself and say, what am I like? What is serious to me compared to what is serious to my friend? For me, my friends, and, well, that's really the rules of my house, they have to be God first. God first over all. And even the Bible talks about that. When you got God, everything else lines up. And most of the time that's with relationships. If you don't love God, then you don't love your wife or the person you're going to marry. Exactly. So actually, we'll start talking about that. That'll go into my next segment. Commitment and... Jeez. Commitment and love tie into relationships. Let's look at Ephesians 5:25. I think I marked that. Come on. Nope. Ephesians, Philippians. We got it. There we go. We all there? Good. What'd I say? Oh, 5:25. There we go. This is... it says... Let's start at verse 22, because I don't want to just start with verse 25. Wives, be subject to your own husband as a service to the Lord. We already talked about serving earlier. Verse 23, for the husband is the head of the wife, My thing has, verse 22 has a little footnote, so I'll read that. The wife to her husband, not men in general. Exactly, and I think that's where now, even males, just being loyal to every female or female being loyal to every guy they see. Just because they're in your life doesn't mean they're loyal. When you're in a relationship, ultimately God first, but your husband, then your guy friends. Your husband is more important, or shall I say, takes place first in there. Anywho, let's go down to verse 24. But as the church to be subject to Christ, so also wives to be subject to their husbands in everything, respecting both their position as protectors and responsibility to God as head of the house. Well, I'll go into that a little bit. Back then, or in their time, the man did the job, and the man was ultimately the protector of the house. Ultimately, the protector of the house, which means he provided for the family. And here it tells us wives to be respect and accept his responsibilities and appreciate what he does. In verse 25, this is really where I wanted to get at. Husbands, love your wife, seek highest good for her, and surround her with caring, unselfish love. Everybody say unselfish love. Right. If you got a highlighter, for me personally, I would highlight that, but I really don't have it on me. But unselfish love, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her. Gave himself up for her. Nowadays, thankfully, a wife can drive, have a car and everything, and get a job too. So, but then it gets into this thing, accepting both responsibility, which means not complaining when she shows up a couple minutes late, or her not complaining when you show up a couple minutes late, because you both have responsibilities. What did I write here? Yeah, okay. But I was talking about unselfish love. Us couples, not yet. God's time. Exactly, yeah, God's time. Unselfish love, we're so quick to be like, when you first married, it's like back to your first love. You're like, you tell your husband, or the husband tells the wife, I love you every day. But then as you hopefully it doesn't stop, but for some people, it's like, you start working all the time, so it's like you're not having time to say I love you and stuff like that. Those words, just I love you, can make your whole day, actually, to be honest, a whole entire different day. Because, it's like when the kid makes the parent lunch, the parent may not eat it because it may not all be edible, but it's the whole thought that counts, It's the whole thought that the kid's like, I really don't know how to cook, but you know what? Mommy or daddy was so tired, so, I'm just going to make them lunch. Even if it means going into your toy basket and finding a block of cheese and saying, here you go, Mom. And she's like, oh, thank you. And some house is like, what is this? What are you giving me, out the window with it? But, oh well. But it's like, those things can change our perspective so much. It's like, looking at it, it's like, I love you, hun. You're so great. Thank you for doing that today. That makes it all feel much better. Because then it's like, I may not be there, but, she appreciates that, I'm working harder. He appreciates that, I have a job and, there's kids to take care of. And that's really important because, how we were talking about she was talking about last words on Saturday. I heard a story which was really sad and almost made me cry. But it's like a husband and wife, they got into an argument over, really, not to use this word lightly, but over the dumbest thing, really. It was like about cleaning or something like that. If the wife wants to clean, really, I would have said, here, you can take it, but that's just me. But anyway, they got into an argument, and he started, shouting and everything. She's mad. He's mad. He sits on the bed, turns on the TV. She storms out the house and takes the keys too. and you hear the door slam. And next, let's give it like maybe an hour or two. There's a knock on the door. He thinks it's his wife, so he's ready for round two. But there's a police officer at the door, I believe. And this is basically, I'm not having all the facts right, but this is kind of in my paraphrase. A police officer knocks on the door, tells him that your wife has been in a car accident and didn't make it. Last words are important. It may not have to be a spiritual word, but your wife died, and the last words you said to her, I believe the last words you said, it was, "I hate what you do." He now, unfortunately, yes, he may make it right, but he's got to live with the fact that the last words he said to the woman he said, "I will be with you through sickness and health," is, "I hate what you do." That's sad. And same thing, it doesn't have to be a couple. It can even be, your parents or your siblings too. Because we don't, and I don't say this lightly, but we don't know our next breath. For all we know, it might be our time to step into the other side of the veil. But I also say this as hope. With God, we do know our next breath. Even if we don't make our next breath on earth, it might be in heaven. So we know that there is a hope. But, a lot of buts today. Anyway, our last words are important because our last words are almost like a marking point in our life, or as the end chapter to our life. And that's, when you read through a book, for those who, we like to skim through books, so you skim to the book and then you're really looking for the end of the chapter. Because if it's like he's like happily ever after, you're like, I don't really want to read this. But if it's like adventure and bravery, you want to know what that last paragraph in the book says. And if it's noble words, that's important. Because it's like Winston Churchill, let's say that wasn't his last words, but let's say nothing, blood, tears, and sweat. But he says victory at all cost. People don't really care what else happens in chapter 4 and 5. They just want to hear that victory at all cost, which encourages them, empowers them to go past every obstacle and just be like, hey, if he could do it, so could I. And so, yeah, I got that. So I just want to end with this. And if you have notebooks, you write this down because this is like a little homework assignment. 4 questions. Number 1, what are you committed to? Which means not people, but it's mainly material things. Cars, money, job, or God, And then question number 2, who are you committed to? That now doesn't, everything includes God, but this is I'm speaking on a natural sense, which means, are you committed to your parent, your pastor? Ultimately you want to be committed to do help where help is needed, but there's always that one person you're committed to, especially like in this church. There's some people in there's always some people, yeah, but hey, your shoes are brown, I think it is. But it's like they're sisters. And that means when you say sister, that is a blood covenant. When you say sister. When I say I have brothers, now sometimes when I'm talking to people I know, it's like, yeah, I have brothers. You know them. If you meet me, you meet my brothers. We're literally, to be honest, even though we may get mad at each other, we are one. So if you ask my middle brother, he will share a little part of me. Whenever somebody's asked, is it just you? I would never ever say, no, it's just me. My other 2 aren't important. I would never say those words. Because, like I said, what if that was my last words I said? And then, the nurse comes and tells my brothers, hey, this is what your brother last said about you. No. They would ask God to resurrect me just so they can, beat me up. Hey, if the power of God flows, the power of God flows. Just don't ask. Why are they praying so hard? Really, don't ask. You really don't want to know. You really don't want to know. But if you have me, you have them. If you have them, they have me. We may not all have us three may not have the same dreams, but we all have a part of each other that's in that dream. And us as, us as a church, we may not all have the same dreams. Like Miss Kelsey, she has a cleaning business. I don't like cleaning. I'm sorry, but when my mom tells me I have to clean my room, it's like I'm walking off the plank. It's like terrible. I'm like, my room isn't dirty. But, she has a cleaning business. I have law enforcement more type of look at life. But either way, I'm protecting people from, dangerous stuff. She might be protecting people from germs, dangerous germs. And actually, no, she's not wrong, because some of these germs are red. Here, who knows what asbestos is? Anybody know what asbestos is? Asbestos is actually a cancer-causing germ. And once it gets in, we almost moved into a whole house that the whole basement was asbestos. And that also ties in with bad foundations. But while there's still a part of my dream that goes into hers. We both care about people. I care about people in the sense of I don't want to see people hurt. She cares about in the sense in people who breathe in things. It actually, when it gets into your lungs, it's very dangerous. Some people have gone into surgery and operations because they have tiny microscopic particles in their lungs. So, either way, just want to say that. Question number 3, how committed are you? Which means we got to look inside ourselves and we got to say, how committed am I? How far am I willing to go? And they tell you that in the Army. Especially when you get higher and higher up the ranks. They tell you, and actually, which is funny because that brings it to remnant, the higher up you get, the harder it is. Once you get to America, exactly, the fewer there are. When you are in America's Navy SEALs, they have a 99% drop rate, which means 1% makes it. 1%. That's a lot. So you know how sanitizer says we kill 99.99999% of germs? There's still that 1%, but we're not going into that. But there's 1% in this church. The higher up we go, the harder it gets. In another church I was listening to, they were talking, a person must have been into like witchcraft and stuff. The minute he was talking, he interrupted the sermon, flailing and screaming and all of that, which means the higher up you go in God's presence, the harder it gets. And they tell you in the Army, and they tell you in other things, how willing are you to get to the end? And that goes back to Philippians 3:13-14. But to forget what's behind you. They tell you, forget what you did yesterday. Look forward to what you're going to have to push through today. And exactly. Never forget that. Keep going. They tell you that when you run. And for some people who, well, they count it as running, but it's more like a little faster, just don't stop. When you're running really fast, just don't stop. Because once you stop, then your lungs start to hurt, and then all the natural stuff comes upon you. Like with Peter, he was going. Like, he was walking on water, and all the disciples were watching him. He walked. But then he stopped, and he looked around him. That's when logic comes into place. And he's like, this isn't possible. And then he lost faith. So the minute you start thinking this isn't possible, the devil comes and takes everything that could be possible and takes it for himself. Got it? And then question number 4. When the time comes, how committed will you be? We need to know the pressure may not come right now at this minute. We may not walk out this building and all of a sudden a bunch of people are going to want to try to beat us with stones or stuff. But there are people who use stones in words, who we may work into the workplace tomorrow, not tomorrow because tomorrow's a Sabbath, and during this week, and there may be people who say something to us, and we're just going to have to, oh, well, you know what, if that's your opinion. I wrote this down just sitting in the hallway. An eagle doesn't know when the storm is, but it's ready all the time. Which means it's not going to be like, in 2.7 seconds, a thunderstorm is going to hit me. But the minute that thunderstorm hits it, he's like, all right, it's time to fly. We need to be ready. Which means we do not know the moment our faith will be tested, but when our faith is tested, What do you count as? The people who gave up in that 99%? Or that 1% who said, you know what, it's time to be ready. So everybody during this week and throughout your whole lives, really, just look inside yourself and say, what am I committed to? Who am I committed to? How am I committed to that person or that thing? And when the time comes, will I be willing to stand up? Amen? Amen. There we go. Thank you.
Excellent job. That was a really good wrap up to what everybody has been talking about this week. It's like, let me grab everything that everybody's been saying and wrap it up into commitment.
That's why I didn't write my notes before.
Yeah. There we go.
I wasn't done till like late night last night.
Hey, honestly, Sherry can attest to this. A lot of our sermons aren't ready until like 11 o'clock the night before we preach. I think it's the anointing of Dad. I always said I would never do something like that. Like, why does he stay up late the night before he has to preach and do this? Why don't we prepare way ahead of time? Try preparing the message on Wednesday. Nope, there's nothing. Friday night, download from Holy Spirit. Okay, why? Yeah. Yes. Yes. There's little things that put out all week long, and then all of a sudden he draws it all together. And that's kind of what this week has been. Like a drop here, a nugget here, and now it all comes together, and where are we headed? And how committed are we to the vision? And I believe that this church is committed. If we weren't committed, we wouldn't be here. We would have been gone a lot. I think each person in this place could say that if they weren't committed, they would have been gone a long time ago. Because there's been a lot of flack that has come against us. There's the word that has come forth from this place is a hard word. It's not tickle your ears. We're not on the milk of the word. This is meat, and there may be some people who could choke over it, and it is a corrective word. But it is all about commitment. It's all about what we're committed to, who we're committed to, and what is our goal. Without a vision, the people perish. If you lose your vision in your life, then you lose your entire life's direction. You lose your direction, you're lost in the woods. You lose what is keeping you going, and you're going to quit before it's time. These feasts are the markers along the trail that keep us on that journey. Now, it's interesting when Josiah says about last words and talking about Winston Churchill. He's one of the ones that I read to Mom. Interestingly enough, we know him for his victory at any cost speech. His final words were, "I'm bored with it all." So the man who was driving everybody else and we're going to get this in victory at any cost, I'm bored with it all. Sounds like he gave up. So if you don't probably gets discouraged in the battle. And how many Christians get discouraged in the battle? It's not about how we start. It's about how we finish the race. It's about, do we finish strong? Or are we losing our momentum as we go along? Are we losing our, always say when you're running a race, pace yourself. It's not, I'm going to start out running 100 miles an hour, and then by the end, you're slowing down and you've dropped all the way back. You got to start and finish strong. And you got to know yourself. You got to know how fast you can pace yourself. But we are committed to it. We're committed to what Yahweh has called us to do as a church. We're committed to the feast no matter what. And we're committed to our God. We're committed to Him. And to Israel, that's right. Now, I wanted to briefly bring something to our attention because we're coming up to we're on Hoshana Rabbah, coming up to Shemini Atzeret, and this is a significant time of the feast. We've had people that have touched on it throughout the week in the water drawing ceremony, and we know that this is when Yeshua came up to the temple and said, "Anyone who is thirsty, let him come," and out of his innermost being will flow rivers of living water. But there's another occurrence that happened on this feast that a lot of people don't think of. So let's turn over to 2 Chronicles chapter 5 real quick. Second Chronicles chapter 5. This is right in the midst of where Solomon began to build the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. You know, it was David's vision, but David was not able to complete the house of the Lord. He was not able to build it because he had blood on his hands. And so he was told that your son Solomon will build it. So Solomon's building the temple. In chapter 5, verse 1, thus all the work that Solomon did for the house of the Lord was finished. You know, completion is a thing. You know, if it's not completed, a lot like Josiah was talking about commitment, you know, you can't be committed unless you complete your commitment, unless you live it out. All the work he did for the house of the Lord was finished. He brought in all of the things that David, his father, had dedicated, and the silver, the gold, and all the vessels he put in the treasuries of the house of the Lord. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes, the chiefs of the fathers' houses of the Israelites, to Jerusalem to bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of the city of David, which is Zion. All the men of Israel gathered to the king at the feast in the 7th month. It was during Sukkot. Now, that's something that's kind of overlooked because it's like this little phrase in the midst of the whole story, and you focus on the entire story without realizing when it took place. It was during Sukkot that this happened. And verse 4, all the elders of Israel came, and the Levites took up the ark. The priests and the Levites brought up the ark, the tent of meeting, and all the holy vessels that were in the tent. And also Solomon and all the assembly of Israel who were gathered to him before the ark sacrificed sheep and oxen so numerous that they could not be counted or reported. Now, this is a very joyous celebration that's going on here. It's during Sukkot. They're celebrating Sukkot. But not only is it Sukkot, they're dedicating the temple. The temple's completed now. You know, when I said that Sukkah and Amen have the same numerical value in the gematria, it means so be it. It's completed. It is finished. And the priests, verse 7, brought the ark of the covenant of the Lord to its place, to the sanctuary of the house, into the Holy of Holies, under the wings of the cherubim. For the cherubim spread out their wings over the place of the ark, making a covering above the ark and its poles. They kind of formed a sukkah above it. And they drew out the poles of the ark so that the ends of the poles, protruding from the ark, were visible from the front of the Holy of Holies, but were not visible from without. It is there to this day. There was nothing in the ark except the 2 tables which Moses put in it at Mount Horeb when the Lord made a covenant with the Israelites when they came out of Egypt. And when the priests had come out of the holy place, for all the priests present had sanctified themselves, they committed themselves. They separated themselves from everything that defiles. You got to separate yourself. If you want the glory of the Lord, you got to separate yourself from anything that could contaminate you. It does require sacrifice, just like Josiah said. Commitment requires sacrifice. You're going to have to give something up to go on this journey. You got to leave some bags behind. He said, you know, if you're running a race, drop off anything that weighs you down. Hebrews chapter 12. Drop off anything that's hindering you. Leave it behind. So they separated themselves from everything that defiles without regard to their divisions. And all the Levites who were singers, all those of Asaph, Heman, and Jeduthun, with their sons and kinsmen, arrayed in fine linen, having cymbals, harps, and lyres, stood at the east of the altar, and with them at the east, yeah, there's that east again. It keeps coming up. At the east of the altar, and with them the 120 priests blowing trumpets. Can you imagine what that sounded like? 120 shofars. Wow, that must have been quite a sound. And when the trumpeters and singers were joined in unison, making one sound, all of them together, there was one note, one sound, to be heard in praising and thanking the Lord. And when they lifted up their voice with the trumpets and cymbals and other instruments for song and praised the Lord, saying, for he is good, for his mercy and loving kindness endure forever, then the house of the Lord was filled with a cloud. Now, this is the time when we talk about the clouds of glory that surround the Sukkah. They're celebrating Sukkot, and the cloud covers them, so that the priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled the house of God. You know, that's what that painting that we have in the sanctuary is depicting. It was literally the glory of the Lord that was so heavy that they couldn't even stand. But it came as they're saying, for he is good, for his mercy and loving kindness endure forever, for he is good, for his mercy endures forever. When you focus on his goodness and his mercy, that is such a cause for rejoicing. And it's such a cause that your entire heart literally opens up before him. And that's when the glory can inhabit you, can make its dwelling there in that place, in your sukkah. That's what it's all about. You know, hearing that and remembering that story, it's just such a powerful image. The fact that happened during Sukkot. And it's no more, Feast of Tabernacles. Well, now the temple has been dedicated. The temple's more permanent than the tabernacle. The tabernacle is a temporary habitation for Yahweh as they were moving through the desert, as they were traveling to and from. It could be taken down and reassembled. But you couldn't take down the temple and reassemble it and move it around. It was a permanent habitation. Well, now we're coming to the point where we are supposed to be, what does it say in the New Testament? You are the temples of the living God. Doesn't say your tabernacles, your temples. He's come to permanently dwell inside of us. It's not to be moved around and this place and that place. No, it's a permanency. He is committed to us. We have to be just as committed to him and his way of doing things and being right. There was a protocol. There was an order to how things were done in the temple. There was an order to who did this and who did this. Each of us have to be in our places all as one. You see the commitment that they had to each other. When all the trumpeters, all the singers, and all the people shouting, they all came into unity. It wasn't, I want my voice to be heard louder than that person over there, so I'm going to try to be louder, and I don't like the way that one sings. He's off tune, and I don't like the way this, I can't be on the front row. Why is he on the front row? I want to be there. No, if that was going on, the glory never would have come. They had to be in unity. Unity. Behold how good it is when brothers dwell together in unity. That's what Sukkot is all about. We're in unity. We're in the same covering of his glory. That's what unites us. Like Josiah said, each of us may have different goals in our own lives personally, but our hearts are all connected because our ultimate goal is his glory. His glory. It's all for his glory. Everything that we do, wherever we go in our lives from here, it's to bring him glory and to see his kingdom come on this earth as it is in heaven. Amen? Well, thank you for those of you who joined us tonight. We trust you got something out of this message, and we will not be having our Tuesday night Bible study this week, but we will see you on next Saturday at 11 a.m. Until then, you have a blessed week.